Okay, hi everyone to episode 7 of the 3D Print Doctor. I'd like to do a welcome to country and acknowledge all elders past, present and emerging, and anyone who is watching this show either live or on recording. And I'm here from the Gadigal land in Sydney. So today is an interesting one because it's one of those ones that there are pros and cons in doing what we're going to be looking at, and that is networking your 3D printer. And there are a couple of ways to do it, and I'm going to show you how we can do that today. And I will advise you straight up front that yes, it's a good idea to be able to network your printers because it does give you a degree of control, especially with the Inventor 4. You have little with the Inventor. I'm going to show you how to do that as well. It's rather limiting on the Inventor, but you can do it. The pros against doing it are it is an open device. So kids, if they work it out, could actually use the FlashPrint software, get in and start and stop prints if you can't lock it down in any way, shape or form. And it really isn't. The one thing to be aware of is the 3D printers that we have, the majority of them are domestic type devices. So they have domestic Wi-Fi. We don't have any enterprise Wi-Fi as such. So that presents the problem for us connecting it to our network. We can't get in into the PEEP, MS Chappy, etc. and get those settings in. When you go in, you get a SID and a password. So it's like when you hook up at home. So it works really, really well at home, and you can hook up and do all the things that you want to do to your printer if you have one of these at home. In our network, we need a few more settings to secure it down, so it makes it difficult. There is a really nice workaround with the new Inventor 4 though, and I'll show you how to do that. So at the very, very base level, on both the printers, they have an option to hotspot Wi-Fi, which means that they will actually transmit a SID, which is a 192 address, which is that real sort of private 192 that most people have got sitting in their homes, unless you're with Telstra and they give you a 10 address for some reason. But what that means is if you want to be able to connect to it via Wi-Fi, which is nice because you can do it wirelessly, you do need to connect to it from your Wi-Fi settings in Windows, and then you lose all your internet because you're not connected to the network itself. So you can hook it up, you can send a print to your printer, it will print off happily, and then you can just reconnect back to the network and away you go. It's a one-to-one situation, so you can only print to that printer, reconnect to another printer, print to it, and so on. So it's a little bit cumbersome. And to be perfectly frank, SneakerNet with a USB is far more efficient and a little bit more secure. So I would kind of turn that off. What I'll do now is that I will swap through and I'll go over to that camera just so I can show you the settings on it. Let me get that. You're going to clear up. Yep, good one. So I'll show you how it works on the Inventor, and it is pretty much similar on the Inventor 4. But you need to go into your tools and then go into settings. You will then find you've got Wi-Fi, which will just give you the Wi-Fi and then a password. Doesn't work. Go into the WWAN hotspot and then turn it on. And I've got it set up here, so it's the Inventor 2 set up, and then we just set that up. It'll come and tell you what the password is. You can make that up what you think. It's usually just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that is ready to go. On your laptop, you just go down to your Wi-Fi on the right-hand side in Windows and all the other ways you do it on the other platforms. Find that Inventor 2, connect to it. It will say you haven't got access to the internet because it's not an internet device. And then you'll be able to go into the FlashPrint software, which I'll show you later on, and connect to it via the FlashPrint software and transmit a job to the Inventor 2. Now, I'll swap this across now and show you the adventurers. So the adventurers are slightly different, though, to be perfectly frank, to do Wi-Fi and do it as a hotspot is pretty much exactly the same on the Adventurer as it is on the Inventor. So you can go in and do just a WLAN hotspot. But what we want to do is be able to get this so that we can actually connect to it easily. There is one little port extra on the Adventurer which gives you that advantage, and it's the Ethernet port. Ethernet, I never remember which way to actually pronounce it. So on the right-hand side, plug in your Ethernet cable. And what I will do in a second is I'm going to show you how this one will work over here. You can plug them both in. Here's the caveat, however. The computer, I'm finding this is rather interesting. The computer that you are trying to control it also needs to be connected via Ethernet. So you need to have it hardwired to the network. I haven't at this point in time been able to get Wi-Fi to work. You guys are going to go off and try and see if you can get that to work. Get back to us on this chat if you can work out how to get a wireless laptop to connect to this, but you do need to have these connected via Ethernet to make it work. So that will get you connected and it'll come up, it'll just get an IP distributed to it. Please don't use field switches, try and plug them in using the standard ports, and then you will be nice to the network, use your switches sitting in your cabinets. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in with this camera. I did say it was going to be an interesting one today. I'm going to show you how the settings work. Right, so that should be right there now. Is that reasonably clear?
Yep,
Yes, no?
can see that well.
Good one. So in this one here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into settings, going to go into network at the top. You then have Wi-Fi and Ethernet. I'm going to click on Ethernet, and I've got nothing at the moment because I haven't plugged this one in. When you plug in your Ethernet cable, is it Ethernet or Ethernet, Stu?
I call it Ethernet. You can call it whatever you like.
And now I've got an IP address. I'm sitting on a 10.0 address, as we've got a 10.0 address in the in here. And this one on the right hand, it also has an IP address as well. Once you've got that, everything's cool. You're off and running. And I will go through it to show you that on the Wi-Fi, you do have a Wi-Fi SID password. You can't get in on it, but you do have got all those. We're not going to be able to put a password in there because you need more. I don't know, but you can. Let me turn that off. Turn off. Good. You can go to a hotspot the same as it was on the Inventor. So have a little play with the Inventor with this, if that's the way you want to just do a quick little ad hoc connection. Let me just go back and check that Ethernet is still working. Yep, we've got an IP address. Okay. Good. So now the next step that I want to go through is to show you how you will connect up to it with the FlashPrint software. So I'm going to present. I've moved around here to, what will I do? I'm actually going to change the camera.
Change the camera on the MLD.
Yep. So
they can see you.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay. My Zoom stopped working. Sorry, guys. And I'm going to go over to the FlashPrint software. So if you need to, Stu, fill everybody in, use the view menu if you want to make that bigger.
Yeah, for people that are watching live, if you click on view at the top, you've got an option there to focus on content, and you'll be able to blow up what Greg is showing here on the FlashPrint software.
Okay, so you should be able to see the FlashPrint software with the bed all set up nicely, ready to accept a model. I've got the right printer connected here, and you will see something interesting here, Adventurer 4 Pro. I am testing that at the moment. It needs a new FlashPrint version. The first version had Z issues. I'm working through that with the manufacturer, and I will talk about that in another episode. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through and connect. I just put a model on here. Yeah, let's do this little one here. So close the preview. Why did you do that? Oh, it's a GX file. I don't want that. Recent. I don't want a GX to do anything. I want. Where did you go? Give me 2 seconds. As per usual, presets never work. Saw GX, STL, I don't want that. Why did you miss? Okay, load. They're the ones I want. Okay, give me 2 seconds and I will get this here. And I want the collapsible sword I'm looking for. And 3D print files. Yes, I've got a lot of files sitting that are 3D that I've been playing with. Let's see, why can't I find collapsible sword? What's your sitting up here? Maybe.
Yeah, second from the top. Yep. Down. Yeah.
Okay, let's dive in here and just get the collapsible sword up. Right, collapsible sword. So we have our collapsible sword in here. Now, I do that because it's nicer if you've got something loaded to be able to get connected. You've got tools with control panel, and as you can see, it's actually found them. What I found was really cool is that when you go to try and connect to the using Wi-Fi, you've actually got to put the IP address in. So you actually have to write it down off the Inventor or the Adventurer if you're doing Wi-Fi direct or peer-to-peer Wi-Fi. Here, if you go to automatic and then do a scan, there will be a section when this isn't connect all, it'll say scan and it'll find those printers. You can change the name, and I do suggest you do because they all start off as Adventurer 4. And because this is going through a switch, they'll all get their own IP addresses. Once you've got this one in here, let me check which one I've got. Can I work out which is which? Good. T4L is on the left-hand side. So the new T4L device is this one here. If I click on this one here, I've got a myriad of controls that you can get in and have a little bit of a play with. Be careful, but I can turn the LED off and on. So I'm working this one here. And if I cut across, go back. I'm not seeing it. It's done its usual thing. It is a little tricky finding things. Connect to a machine. There we go. There we go. Now, from here, there's the automatic scan, which is really clever. Now, if I jump down to the FD Advanced 4, Adventurer 4, I can now dive in here and I can actually turn the lights on and off. I can turn my camera on and off, and the camera will actually show up in this screen. And I can actually see all of the items that are already loaded onto this printer. So I'm actually seeing what's on the printer, because every time if you've used SneakerNet with a USB stick and you can see me through the window, and you've actually loaded it up through USB, it actually saves. So you can, if you've never worked this out, once you're printing or started the printer, you can pull the USB stick out straight away.
Greg, we're not seeing that screen because I think you've only shared the FlashPrint software.
So I need to go full screen.
Yeah, if you stop the sharing and restart it.
And I'll go screen. Right. Okay, let's go back and do it again. Print, connect, and I want to do this one.
Yeah, we weren't seeing this before.
Thank you. Okay, so you can now see that screen.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Sorry about that, guys. So I can now see the list of prints that I have actually done previously on this particular printer. So I can dive in here and then I can actually say, well, print. And it's kicking it off. And if you can see in the other screen, you might start to see that it's moving. I can turn the light on and off. You can see that working. I can turn the camera on and off, and I can actually take a picture as well. Wouldn't it be lovely if they had a time lapse built into this? But unfortunately, they don't. Once you've actually got that kicked off, you can get out. You can come from here and then go and connect to the other printer. I've got to then find the other printer. Let me go back here, connect to a machine. And now I'm going to connect to this particular machine, which is that one. And you can see this one's printing, showing you the printing and its progress. It'll also show you the temperatures. There's the bed at 32 out of 55. That's what it's aiming for. And the nozzle itself is at 33 degrees, ramping up to 220. Now, if I click on the other printer, and this gives you control of the printers, I can now kick into this one. And this was another little one that I was working on. I'll turn on the camera as well so we could see what was going on there. And then I can actually kick that off. Now I can turn this light on and off, and you'll see that the other light is turning off on the middle printer, and I can now kick that off and start it printing. So you can see that working within a school, you could get the kids to actually send you print files and then send it off to the various printers. Caveat, so can the kids. So be careful. Somehow you're going to have to lock that off or stick it on a field switch and turn it off. There's all sorts of things. There's going to have to be some way. One of the nice things that I like about it is that I can actually dive in here, and I can do it from here. I can pause that print job from this screen, or I can go into the whole lot and I can cancel the print job. I can even cancel it from this screen as well if I wish. So it's giving you lots of control options from here. I'm going to cancel both of these.
That means students would have that same control.
Yeah, and that's why I say there are pluses and minuses to networking your 3D printers. So be aware. Now, this is one of the ones that I quite like. If I had this set up here, I could start slicing this and do a slice. So I'll slot that up there, get it ready to go. We all like the sword. And if you've noticed, I did get around to putting the sword up there, so I need to get a count as to how many people are using their swords in the classrooms and how successful the prints were. You will find, depending on your filaments, some of them come apart super quick and easy, and some of them you do need to fiddle about, get a little shim in there sometimes to separate the dags that come across each of the layers within the sword. But it's a really, really nice little way to show that you can build something with only one print, but it has multiple parts. All right, we're almost ready to go here. So once we've got this set up, I can go to multi-control. I can select both these prints. And now what I can do is I can send a G code, which is the same G code, to both the printers. So if you needed to print multiple items off, I now have both of these spooling to do the sword, the collapsible sword. So if you wanted to do a production run, this is kind of what it's designed for, to be sitting in the background. You've got a production run and you're trying to do multiple items. You may have something that you're trying to get ready for a school play or something, and you've got to print a whole pile of things off, or you're selling little items to the kids, or they want to make them to be able to sell. You've got a retail thing going. This would be a good way to sort of kick it off. Well, design something, build something up. We can sell it to the kids or the parents, etc. You've got yourself a little retail system working, and you actually got production all the way through to sales, etc. But you could get them kicked off doing this. Note that if you wanted to do multiple items, you would lay that up in FlashPrint software and have, say, 4 of these sitting on the bed, and then you would do a print to all of your printers, 2, 3, 4, and you can gang up as many of these. I do not know how many you can do. I would suspect that it's as many IP addresses as you have. It will kick one off and get it going once it has, let's say, streaming printing. It's downloading the print to the actual computer. This one over here, by the looks of it, has already got it down because it's come up on the screen. This one over here is still getting it, copying across, not nearly as fast as you will find a USB. USBs, this takes about 10, maybe 15 seconds for it to go across. Once that screen comes up, it's copied across and it's ready to print. Now, theoretically, you would also be able to have various prints. I would, for example, if I had Adventurer Pros as well as Adventurer 4s, or if you did buy an Adventurer 3, hopefully you didn't, you could literally be printing to all of them. However, remember that your GX code, the sliced code for each of those printers, does have subtle differences. So therefore you would have to print to all of the Adventurer 4s then you would print to Adventurer 4 Pros, then you would print to Adventurer 3s if that's the way you were doing it. Okay, so that's how you're actually printing. They're all warming up. They've both got the connection set up there. So they're ready to start printing. And again, I can go back to the FlashPrint software on the screen here, and I've got control to pause, cancel the print, and I can also dive in and have a look at this. Now, the other thing that I should be able to do, oops, trying to get to that screen and I never remember where it hides. Is it under control panel? Busy machine, right, okay. Of course, the machines are busy. I can't get to that big screen that shows you all the fine controls. Have a bit of a look at that, but be very careful of what you do. You can, for example, you could ramp the speed up. So if you're printing at 100 millimeters per second on an Adventurer, you can go up to as high as 200 millimeters per second. Be aware that you start to get artifacts, which means that the filament kind of can't keep up because it's not pushing it through as quickly. You do get variations, especially on the edges, etc., and it tends to not give you brilliant printing. Sometimes it works. Different filaments work better than others, so it's a little bit of experimenting. You've got to play with things when you're doing that. The new Adventurer 4 Pro, and I will jump on that at the moment, I am testing that, but I'm having Z shift issues. There is a new piece. I've got this is 5.6.1. There's a 5.7.1 that's just come out literally a couple of weeks after the first one came out, so they've identified a problem. I think it might need a firmware update because I'm getting big Z shifts in it, up to 10 millimeters, which is just, you can't print. Having said that, I've had some successful prints, but there's a little anomaly there. The other thing it isn't doing nicely is if you try to print after you've already printed and you haven't turned the machine off, it forgets to home. And then the print bed comes all the way out, knocks the door open, and it just prints in the wrong spot. So you end up with a whole pile of issues. So they're both starting to print. The one on the right-hand side has already got the first layer in. The one on the left-hand side, which was its second in order, is starting to print. So you could have a really good little printer farm going by networking. So to reiterate, Ethernet is the way you've got to actually connect these up to be able to get it working nicely using this particular system. Thank you. You do need the computer that you're controlling to also be, or what I've been experiencing, it also needs to be connected via Ethernet as well. I am yet to work out how to have the computer on Wi-Fi connecting. That would give you great versatility. Theoretically, this is an interesting one that you guys can play with. I should, in one way, kind of be able to see a printer in another school, because I know I can see printers, but I don't know whether I can print them. Stu, you can chime in on that one. So that's your network printing. Now, what I'm going to do is dive in and stop these now. And so I've got full control over doing that at any point in time. And I can actually look at it. One of the things that I would like is I can actually go in and have a look at the camera settings, and I can see if I'm getting a bunch of grapes or spaghetti starting to appear. So if you were a little bit dodgy about you went with no brim or raft, and you weren't real sure it was going to have enough of a footing, you could be checking on it from a classroom if you were teaching, which we all have to do. You could be able to have a bit of an eye on it and you go, oh, hang on, I'll cancel that print now rather than wasting a whole pile of filament. I have yet to be able to work out, you would have to have a remote connection to be able to get into a computer that was connected at school, but I haven't been able to do it remotely from home to check it. So if you're doing overnight prints at all, you kind of want to know that the printer's set up, ready to go, you've got fresh filament in there, and then let it go. I do let prints go regularly overnight. Longest print that I've ever done was 72 hours, and it's printed successfully, really, really nicely. Left it over the weekend, so I didn't have people coming in and deciding, oh, why is that printing, and turning it off, so that was really cool. I have not had 100% success with pausing a print, waiting any extended amount of time, and then restarting that print. I do find that the cooling of the actual filament from those layers to the new layers does give you a shear plane. I think I've talked about this before, and it doesn't stick brilliantly. If you've got a wide area that is joining, that will work, but if it's thin, I do find it can just crack off. It does recover quite well. Where it is nice is if you have a filament run out, and I haven't been able to test this, but I suspect the software, if you're doing it via the remotely, it'll tell you when the filament will run out. So you're going to go, oh, better run around and change the filament over. And in that period of time, it would work nicely. But there should be where it's saying idle now on the screen. That would come filament run out, and then you'd be able to go and get that. And you'll be able to see also that it's not printing. So it'll give you, if you go in and have a look at the camera. So they're the actual ways that you can 3D print via the network to the Adventurer and the Inventor printers. It's the Adventurer with the Ethernet is really good, and it works really, really nicely. So that's something worth looking at if you decided you were going to set up a farm of printers, and it also gives you the ability to have a really good look at them. So what I'll do now is just open it up to everybody if they want to ask some questions, and turn your mics on and rattle away, and we'll see if we can answer them.
Well, everyone's quiet, Greg.
Yeah, very quiet, aren't they?
Yeah, one way that that people have got around peripheral devices that don't talk enterprise Wi-Fi,
yep,
is they hotspot their Windows device. So their Windows device is connected to the Wi-Fi enterprise normally, but then they turn that into a hotspot, and then they connect their printer to that hotspot.
Because the hotspot's only domestic Wi-Fi then, isn't it?
Yes.
Interesting.
And then you can make it available. But I don't know what that situation would be. I assume that it would make it available across the rest of the network to other devices. But
would be interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen other schools doing that before.
That's an interesting one. Now, there are commercial solutions. Octoprint is one that I know of. And from my memory banks there, it uses a Raspberry Pi in a little module that you plug in, and has a Wi-Fi module, and you plug it into either the USB or the Ethernet. I think there is a choice. You do need, from my understanding, an Octoprint per printer to be able to actually do the printing, but it gives you pretty much control of the printer. It's as if you're looking at the control panel. It's a very clever solution for you, but that's called Octo, like the octopus. Yeah, we just had a tile fall off. And another tile fall off. I'll put that back later. Yeah, they're not sticking that well. So that's an interesting one. So if you do have any questions about it, you want to have a look at how to do the network printing, dive in, follow this through, have a bit of a play with it. It's a really good, interesting way to go. As I said before, a 3D printer in a school is pretty much useless. If you've got 30 kids and you want to start punching it out, you need multiples. I was really glad that our STEM.T4L share library of the 3D printers went from 1 to 2 printers. That makes it a lot more feasible because you can start to put them on. When you learn to put multiple kids' jobs on the one print bed and then print them off in one go, it speeds things up slightly because you're not removing each one individually. But if you had something like this set up, I always say you need probably a minimum of 5 printers, so there's a bit of an investment. But if you had 5 printers with a kit of 30 and you could put 6 name tags down, you could print those 6 name tags in less than 40 minutes to an hour. You would have them out and the kids would be taking them home that day. Bigger prints obviously take you longer, but it does give you those capabilities. So it's the sort of thing you start looking at. I am going to start looking also at other printers. There's a number of schools that have got different printers that are out there, and I will sort of have a bit of a discussion at some point in time. I haven't got anything teed up for next week at this point in time, so keep an eye on the website, and I will put something up in the next few days, or we might skip another week and we'll make it fortnightly as I come up with content. But I will be also doing a interesting one on being able to fix things. I've been out to a number of schools who have had a couple of little issues with their printers, and it's nice being able to go through the solutions that I've found and pass them on within this environment. So we'll make it a nice, quick and easy one. We're smack on 30 minutes today, so I think we've done well.
You've got
That's
a question there
well.
you've got a question there from Suda. What about MakerBot?
Right, okay. Now, MakerBot were the first 3D printers. Well, they weren't the first, but they were the first ones that you could actually buy. They were really cool little wooden ply ones when they first came out, and they were cool as. Everybody just jumped on them. They were very, very much that hobbyist end. The MakerBot printers are expensive for what you're getting. The one thing that I really, really look at with a print when I'm doing it in a school is super ease of use, quality of print. Quality of print out of a FlashForge to a MakerBot, virtually equivalent. To be perfectly frank, I think these print better. Ease of use, they're probably similar in terms of that. Price-wise, they're about $2,500 for the same sort of print. I don't think they've got the print size in here. I haven't looked at one recently, but that's what I always found. The MakerBot are good, but it's Stratus, I think, are the parent company. They stopped making the domestic little MakerBots, and they've been taken over by some other company to keep it going. Stratus now are doing commercial bots. So these guys here still are good. The one at the moment that I'm liking is the new bamboo printer, but I would not be getting the open one, which is about $1,000 or $1,100. Get the enclosed. I would never recommend anybody use a 3D printer that doesn't have an enclosure. You will have no end of problems, especially, which is going to sound weird, especially in those shoulder seasons. When you're in winter printing, you've got a warm room and it prints quite well. Summer, it's hot, so it prints quite well. Those shoulder seasons, your autumns and springs, however, and if you've ever got any air movement in your room, that will kill your printers off really, really quickly. If you have an open printer, most people put an enclosure around them and they use the IKEA tables. They're a lap or something table, I think they're called. They're about $10. They're cheaper than that. I think they're $8.99. And they put acrylic on them with a door and they put that over the top of their printers, and that gives them an airflow. You need a little bit of warmth inside your printer. That's why the Inventor gives you slightly better quality than the Inventor, because it has a heated print bed as well as the nozzle. So there's a bit of temperature inside, and that temperature keeps it stable. When you've got cool surrounds or atmosphere and you've got hot filament, it tends to warp and buckle. ABS way more than PLA, but ABS and PET do this horrible warping. As the top layers shrink, they pull up the bottom layers because they're shrinking in, and you do end up with more, what would we call it? You end up with more shrinkage, so you don't end up with the object that you've printed being the size that you expected. If you're doing a 100mm cube, it can shrink by as much as 3 to 4 millimeters. So you've got to then do adjustments. If you've got an enclosed printer, it will enclose. There's some really good talk about the bamboo printer. I am thinking about trying to find somebody who might have one that is on our contracts to see if we can try one out, because I do know that there's a few schools looking at it. We've had a couple of people on Viva, Yammer, that have been asking about those printers. And then there's a bunch of other ones that are going around, which are really cool printers as well. FlashPrint version stopping other software install had an issue where teachers spent 4 and other software wouldn't install after F12. Yeah, there's some interesting things that I've had with that. Right at the moment, I'm having trouble actually installing the next version at the moment. It won't install. I'm getting back to the manufacturer and saying this particular version doesn't install, and I'm trying to install it using an SA account. It dies because there's a few drivers that have got to install after the initial print. That's the one I'm doing. There's your Bamboo Labs one, which is really, really cool. It's about $1,800 to $2,000 for the enclosed one, but it's supposed to print super quick, and they're stating things like 200 to 400 millimeters per second. That is ludicrously quick. I don't know what the they are only $900 a multicolour prints too. Now check that pricing, because that's US, not Australian. You got to get on the Australian side. Check that price on that one.
On that, Greg, on the FlashPrint not installing, would a manual uninstall on the
That's the
previous
thing
version
I'm
help?
going to try myself. Yeah, I'm trying to see if I manually uninstall, can I then reinstall? There might be a conflict with an old version, and I've had that prior. So what I'll look at doing, if that's the case, I might actually look at getting Corrine, if she can, to look at doing a uninstall before the install of the FlashPrint software, if that's what I find goes wrong. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they've got some special pricing at the moment. So
Ah,
Bamboo
they go
Lab
too.
P1P 3D printer, 919 AUD.
It's really good. If that's the enclosed one, that is good.
That's one of them. That's the Tom's Hardware Editor's Choice.
Yep.
The P1P 3D. There's the X1 carbon that's got the 4 filaments on the top.
Yep.
That
adds
is
a little bit to it.
2278. But there's another one, the P1S, which has the 4 filaments on top for 1069. So I'm not sure what the difference is.
Stupid price, because it was only about a month ago that I looked at them, and enclosed ones were 2,000 near its damn it, and the open one was the $1,000 one. So they've dropped in price significantly. We're obviously trying to flood the market because they're supposedly a bloody good printer. Well, there's a major problem, and they've got to get rid of them.
Okay, the 919 one is an open printer. I can see that.
Yeah. So the open print is the 19. You can enclose it yourself. It comes with all the STLs, and then you print them off and you use acrylic. But I would just, for a school, you might do that as an exercise, one, but the rest of them I would buy them ready to go.
It's interesting. You actually click on the printer. It's like it says the Bamboo Lab P1S 3D printer.
Yep.
From 10. How about I share my screen?
Yeah, you go for it. I'll unshare mine.
So yeah, this one here, this is the open printer.
Yep.
That you see there, that's
919. 919. Yeah, they've dropped that from 1069. Yep.
This one says from 1069, but when you click on it, it says that it's 1459. So I'm not sure what the from is talking about.
Yes.
There's different variants here. Okay, so that's the variant there with AMS, and this is without AMS.
So what's with AMS?
The auto feeder at the top.
That's still a good buy.
Yeah,
I would like to be able to see how it does the multicolor, because usually when you do multicolor printing, you have to have a wiping tower because it needs to purge each of the filaments to get rid of the previous one as it changes color.
Yeah.
And the wiping tower can use more filament than the actual print. So you do have to be careful when you're mucking around. It's a cool way to print. But again, remember that you can only have solid prints. That's the one that I would be looking at if I was going to put it in a school. And that's the sort of thing that I would do. I would buy, for example, one of these, because I used to say buy 5 or so of the little Inventors and then buy a guider, because it's the one with the 300 by 300 by 300. So it's got a big print. You don't need 5 of the big guider printers, whereas this one here would be the one I'd be looking. Gives you multi-print, does some things. It's supposed to do some interesting stuff with the new carbon filaments as well. So that's where it's, and that's where it's saying the carbon in the name.
That's the other thing that it says there is if you order printers, you'll get 20% off their selected filaments. So I don't know what.
Yeah, I'd like to see what the price of their filaments are to be good. But yeah, it looks interesting. So that's the only other one that I've been getting a lot of good reports and reviews on. And we can get them in Australia, which is interesting. I'm going to see if I can get one to test, because it'll be interesting to have an alternative for those that want to spend a little bit more money on a more high-grade unit. As for super high-grade commercials, the Raise printers are spectacular. They're really nice, but they come in a smaller version, plus one that will print up to 1 metre high. So, and I think it's 600 by 600 by a metre. Huge printer. All right, okay, we'll call it quits there, and we will stop the recording. And I will see you either next week or in a fortnight's time. See you then.